Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sooner Nation podcast as we're trying to wrap up these position previews. Today, it's the final position group we're going to look at on the defensive side of the ball. I'm glad you're here with me, and we're going to talk about linebackers. Here's the deal. As the 2025 season, it's officially game week. And as we look into this season and this Oklahoma Sooner squad, I think every position legitimately has a storyline. And I don't know, I feel like I've said this and I've thought this with every defensive position group. And I think it applies, what I'm about to say applies to the linebackers as well. Like, if you really want to know where this defense could sink or swim, I think you look at the linebackers. Now, let's be real, okay? There are a few spots have defined a Brent Venables defense more than linebacker. And for the last 3 years, the Sooners have had one of the best linebackers in the country in Danny Stutsman. Every Saturday, this dude was out there. He was a tackling machine. He was a team leader. And he was the emotional heartbeat, not just of that defense, but really of the whole team. Now, he's in New Orleans. He's off to the NFL. And you don't just replace a guy like that. You don't just dip into your depth chart and find another All-American hiding somewhere in there. Danny's departure, it leaves a hole, not just physically in the middle of the field, but emotionally in the locker room. And here's the kicker. Stutsman wasn't the only loss. Dasan McCullough gone, Lewis Carter gone, Phil Facati gone. Those are guys who were supposed to take a step forward this year. Instead, Venables and Nate Drilling, the linebackers coach, they're staring at a room that's thinner than what we kind of anticipated it to be as last season ended. And by the way, Drilling new on the job. But, and this is a big but, all hope is not lost. You've got a good starting trio. Kip Lewis, Kobie McKinzie, Sammy Omosigho. That's a group that has real potential if they stay healthy. And if they do stay healthy, and if they do maximize their potential, they could be one of the better linebacker units in the entire SEC. Let's start with Kip Lewis. You know his name. He had a breakout season in 2024. 63 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 pick sixes. You had the Auburn game, you had the Alabama game. And those were, if we look back on it, those were season-changing plays. And the best part about Lewis is that he's consistent. Nearly 500 defensive snaps and only 12 missed tackles. That's insane. Now, he's not the biggest guy, but he plays fast, he plays smart. And now he's got to be the leader of this defense. Next to him, you've got Kobie McKinzie. Now, that's a different style. He's the hammer, if you will, in the middle of the defense. He's physical, he's downhill, he's a run stuffer. Last year, he had 30 tackles, 3 of them for loss. He had a sack and a half. Those aren't eye-popping numbers, but his experience is valuable. The question about McKinzie is consistency. Down the stretch, we saw his role take a little bit of a dip. But if he can grab that middle spot, that Mike spot, and if he can own it, the Sooners have their enforcer on the inside. Then there's Sammy Omosigho. He's kind of the wild card, if you will. He made the move to Cheetah last year and quietly put together a decent season, 40 tackles, 5.5 of them for loss. He showed that he can cover. He showed that he can blitz. He can make plays in space. His bowl game against Navy was really encouraging. And if he keeps ascending, he could become like an X factor in this whole group. But then here's where the nerves sort of kick in a little bit, is when you look at the overall depth of this unit. And we know this. We learned it last year, but I think we knew it even before then. In the course of a football season, particularly in the SEC, you have to have depth. Think about that Kansas game, even 2023, even before the SEC, that game when Danny Stutsman was out. Look how much that drastically changed that game. In Oklahoma, I don't know. I don't know about the depth of this unit. Now, you've got Kendall Daniels, transfer from Oklahoma State. He brings versatility. I mean, he's lined up everywhere. Safety, linebacker, the hybrid roles. He's a valuable addition to this roster, but where does he actually fit the best? Can Brent Venables maximize him? Or is he just going to be a guy who plugs in where there's a desperate need? I think he'll be fantastic in the cheetah role. You've got Kendall Dolby. Before his ankle injury last year, he was playing like one of the best defenders, if not the best defender on this team. Now, if he's back at full strength, that's a huge lift. But if he's not back at full strength, there's question marks. You don't have Jaron Kanak anymore. He's officially a tight end now. So that ship has sailed on that project. So it leaves us with a group of young guys. James Nesta, Marcus James. Nesta's been developing. Marcus arrived over the summer. There's an intrigue there. But are these guys ready to carry the load on this defense through the grueling SEC schedule? Probably not. So here's what you've got. A linebacker unit that's high ceiling, razor-thin margin for error. And if the starters stay healthy, if Daniels and Dolby can contribute, this is a very good group. Now, maybe not Stutsman good, but good enough to complement a fantastic defensive line that's probably going to be elite. But man, one injury, one setback, things could get messy pretty fast. Cross-training players, shifting roles, leaning on hybrid looks, Venables and drilling, they may have to get creative if you have an injury bug hit this group. And in that way, the linebacker room feels like a microcosm of the entire Oklahoma team in 2025. There's plenty of talent, enough to beat anybody. But they're also thin enough that if the wrong domino falls, things could unravel quickly. So here's the question that we're probably going to be looking at all season long. Is there enough? Not enough talent. That's there. The question is depth, durability, leadership. Those things will decide if this group is just good or if they're great. And in the SEC, that difference means everything. It's the line between surviving and contending. So after the break, we're going to take a closer look at how this linebacker situation ties into the bigger defensive position for the Sooners, the defensive picture. How the front seven is going to be the strength and how the secondary, especially the corners, could decide Oklahoma's playoff hopes and conference championship aspirations. Hang in there with us. This is the Sooner Nation podcast.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, welcome back to the Sooner Nation podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. Do me a favor, please, if you enjoy the podcast, if you've listened to us, let's say 3 times or more, would you subscribe, whether you're getting it on YouTube or you're getting it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're finding us, hit that subscribe button. That really means a lot to us and helps us out. I know we're talking linebackers, we're talking defensive previews, but it is game week, and we will get more into Oklahoma's match against Illinois State later in the week. But there is something about the game I want to talk with you about. You know, we're what, 5 days, 6 days away for the Sooners returning to the field. You get that roar of the stadium, you get SEC Saturday. But if you think that's all, then really think again, because game week's not just about kickoff. This is prime time in the recruiting world. And this Saturday, Oklahoma on the field, they're going to play Illinois State in the season opener. Now, I don't know about you, but this time off from December to now, that 8-month period is like, I feel like every day is like 3 days long. So now it's the moment we've all been waiting for. The season started, but it's also much more than that, because week 1 and week 2 in Norman, they're not just about the game, they're about Oklahoma's future. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Week 1, the opener against Illinois State, it's your chance to see Oklahoma play, but for this coaching staff, it's a chance to introduce this program, this game atmosphere to a wave of young recruits. Think of them as maybe the freshman class of 2028. These are young men who some of them haven't hit the varsity level yet, but they're going to become stars in the next few years. And to them, showing up in Norman right now sends a message, hey, you're important. Now, one of the names you want to keep an eye out is Jayden Thompson. He's a 6'4", 280-pound offensive tackle from Lucas, Texas. Now, this kid's just a sophomore, but he's already got offers from Baylor, SMU, TCU, North Texas, UTSA. And Oklahoma wants him lined up as their next great blocker on their line. So game week or not, if he's one of the headliners on campus on Saturday, if he's walking through those doors wearing a crimson and cream, jumpsuit, that's intentional. That's an effort to build Oklahoma's brand within his family, within his mentality early. We got a guy named Camren Phillips. He's another 2028 recruit. He's a quarterback from Dallas Life, Oak Cliff. Now, he's only got one D1 offer so far. That's from Sacramento State. But guess what? A visit to Oklahoma this early means that the Sooners are watching him. It's a signal that they believe there's a high upside here, and there's ability that he's got to build on who he is. Offensive lineman Zandon Massey from Little Rock is on deck. You got wide receiver Gage Gibbons out of Oklahoma's Edmond, right? He's a 2027 recruit. Lineman Sam Rudolph from Oklahoma City. Now, some of these guys are just their legacy names. Some of these guys are under the radar, and some are just stepping, like we said earlier, into their varsity roles. But lighting that pathway early puts Oklahoma in place to lock in this relationship and then build on it throughout the season and then into next year. Now, when you get to week 2 against Michigan, that's a different type of beast. That's primetime in Norman. It's national television. It's the kind of game where narratives are written, and Oklahoma, they're not just playing to win, they're still playing to recruit. And one of the players that's confirmed to attend this game is Elija Harmon. He's a high-profile 2027 defensive tackle out of Inglewood, California. He's a consensus 4-star. He's ranked inside the top 150 nationally, and he's got a slew of blue blood offers. Auburn's in there, Florida's in there, Oregon, Texas, Texas A&M. Oklahoma's very much in the mix here. And bringing him to Norman for this Michigan game, yeah, that's intentional. That's placing him in the environment where the SEC sells best. The night game, the big opponent, national television. And you got to say, why are defensive line visits so important? Because in the world of Brent Venables, defensive trenches win titles. Look what he did. He built Clemson's identity on a dominant defensive line. And he's doing the same thing here at Oklahoma. The SEC it's a conference that is loaded up front, from Alabama to Georgia to Ole Miss. And Oklahoma has to stack up against those guys. So when you recruit elite defensive guys up front, it's not a choice. It's not negotiable. It's what makes Harmon's visit for the Michigan game really a high-stakes moment for Venables and the Sooners. But there's a bigger picture here. There's the recruiting philosophy that Venables brought from Clemson to Norman. It's not splashy. It's not reliant on a hype video. It's not strategic. It's the right players and the right environment at the right time. So here's my point. Venables thrives on developing defensive playmakers. But what we learned, especially last year, he also needs offensive impact, right? That's why these early offensive line, quarterback, wide receiver visits matter as well. Jayden Thompson, Camren Phillips, Gage Gibbons, they're not defensive linemen, but they're capitalizing on the moment of a new SEC brand and an Oklahoma staff that's clearly investing. So let me tell you what this signal means to fans and the recruits. Oklahoma is not in rebuild mode. They're in restart mode, and they're doing it with precision. Week 1 against Illinois State, you got offensive linemen, quarterback, receiver, big interior prospects. And that message is to start building those relationships early. Week 2 against Michigan, it's a night game, spotlight game, high-profile environment, and you've got top defensive line targets seeing what Oklahoma looks like when the national stage arrives. Now, I'm not one to sugarcoat anything, but getting these visits, it's not the same as landing the commitments. But here in this second year of the SEC transition, this is big time for Oklahoma. It says that Oklahoma is recruiting broader, deeper, smarter, capturing national attention once again. Now, kind of take a breath with me here, right? Because they've invested in staff. Jim Nagy, they got new offensive coordinators. They got the talent pipeline from the portal. They're showing you the football side isn't dormant. Now they're building the future. This is the new model for Oklahoma. This is the blueprint, and this is evidence of what they want you to see, you as the fan, in action. So here's what you're going to notice if you're at the game, or maybe even on TV. You're going to see, like normal, faces of recruits in the crowd. But look for kids, if you follow recruiting, from across the region who might wear an Oklahoma hat, just for one day even. Watch how Oklahoma puts them through playbooks for sit-down conversations. I mean, it's one thing to sit down with the recruit and say, here's what we think your strength is within our program. Here's how we see you fitting in. But you slide that student, that kid, that recruit, that athlete, give him a couple of pages from your playbook for that game, and you say, this is your spot right here. Watch what we do with this guy, because this is what we want to do with you. Watch it. Watch this play. That's huge. And of course, you've got the energy from the stadium. That night game better be loud, because for recruits, emotion counts. You take pride in the place that wants you. It matters to them, especially in a sport like football that's built on legacy. So as we get into this week further down and we start, previewing Oklahoma, Illinois State, just remember that it's no longer about execution on the field. It's also about selling a vision off the field. It's about saying to recruits, this is who we are and this is who we want you to be. And when you do that right, it sells championships before they even take a step onto the football field.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Life gets easier with great assists, and State Farm is here to dish one your way. Get in touch over the phone or on the app to get the teammate you need. State Farm with the assist. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability and eligibility vary by state.
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. Enjoy complimentary access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with a welcome offer of 150,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership, your business can soar to new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
All right, so let's bring this episode to a close. Officially, the first episode of game week for Oklahoma. We've been talking about linebackers, and so we got to kind of close it out with a little bit more in-depth look at this group. Anyway, let's start with the obvious here. For Brent Venables, linebacker isn't just another position group, right? This is the position group for him. It's the heartbeat of his defense. It's what his schemes are built around, from Clemson to Oklahoma, from the old Big 12 days to the ACC days, now back to the SEC. Venables has always leaned on elite linebacking play to make his defenses go. And I think for the first time in 3 years of his Oklahoma tenure, I guess 4 years now, let me start over. I think you got to say for the first 3 years, he had that rock in the middle of his defense with Danny Stutsman. And, I mean, I know I talked about Stutsman in this opening segment, but the thing about him is that Danny was everything you could want in a Venables-style linebacker. He was tough. He was instinctive. He was a sideline-to-sideline guy, and he flat-out produced. I mean, he led Oklahoma in tackles for 3 straight years. He became a consensus All-American, and he worked his way into the record books in Norman. And like we talked about in the opening segment, you don't just replace a guy like that. You don't just go out and find another Danny Stutsman. He's gone, right? And so that leaves, in my opinion, a big question. What does Oklahoma look like at linebacker in 2025 without him? You know, just as a refresher, something else we talked about in that opening segment, that it wasn't just Stutsman, right? It's Desan McCullough, Phil Picotti, Lewis Carter, Jaron Kanek is officially tied in. So what does all this mean? It means like this is a thin linebacker group. It's thinner than what you and I thought they would be, and I think certainly it's thinner than what Brent Venables expected to be. And that means a lot of pressure falls on the guys who are coming back. But here's the thing. Even with those departures, even with a lack of proven depth, there is real potential in this group. The projected starters, we talked about them. They look solid. And there's experience in that group. There's talent in that group. And if they hold up with their health, it really could be one of the better linebacker units in the SEC. Now, I mean, no mistake. That's why we're saying it twice. The margin for error is razor thin. But man, that ceiling, it is sky high. Let's start with the anchor. Let's look at these guys more in detail. Let's start with Kip Lewis. I mean, again, he's a guy that we all know well. He's gone from a redshirt freshman afterthought to one of the most reliable defenders on the field. Yeah, he's undersized by SEC standards. He doesn't have that prototypical linebacker frame, but man, honestly, I think that works in his favor because he's able to use his speed, his low center of gravity to slip blocks, and he's consistently around the ball. Last year, he racked up 63 tackles. 4.5 of those tackles were for loss. And you know the headline moment for him, not one, but 2 times, he had pick sixes. And those didn't come against cupcakes either. I mean, there's one thing about, returning a pick six against Tulsa or Illinois State or Kent or whatever. But his scores came against Auburn and Alabama, and they were game-defining moments. They were season-changing plays, as we mentioned earlier. And if you go back and you watch those games, you see a guy who's not overwhelmed by the stage. He's not overwhelmed by the environment. You see a guy who thrived, be it on the road at Auburn or at home at night against Alabama. Pro Football Focus graded him out at almost a 93 in the game against Auburn. That's an elite grade. Over the season, in nearly 500 snaps, he missed only 12 tackles. That's insane. That's remarkable efficiency. So yeah, he may not look like Danny Stutsman, but he's got the instincts. He's got the range, and now he's got the experience. The question for Lewis in 2025 isn't, can this guy play? Because we know he can. The question is, can he now lead? With Stutsman gone, Kip Lewis has to become what I believe, in my opinion, he has to become the voice and the glue of this linebacker unit. Now, next to Lewis is going to be Kobie McKinzie. And Again, a different style of linebacker. He's bigger, he's more physical, he's more of a downhill plugger type of guy. This is your classic run stopper between the tackles. McKinzie got his feet wet as Stutsman's backup last year. Now, he logged over 300 snaps and he finished with 30 tackles. 3 of those were for loss. He had 1.5 sacks. That's solid production, but, I mean, here's the thing. This year, he can't just be solid. He has to be dependable. He has to lock down that middle spot. And here's where fans should pay really close attention. We talked about this in the opening segment. His role dipped a little bit late last year. So he had some ups and downs. He missed a few plays. He looked hesitant at times, but he also flashed real potential. And Venables has always liked this kid. Remember, he was one of Venables' first priorities in that recruiting class when he took over. Now this is his time. If McKinzie can be the enforcer in the middle, that takes pressure off of the rest of the defense. The safeties don't. The safeties can have trust, and that's a big, big deal. We've seen, I don't like to go back to the Alex Grinch days, Lincoln Riley days, when the safeties didn't trust the linebackers. Now, those weren't great safeties, but they could have been so much better than what they were if they just trust their linebackers. McKinzie's the key to making that happen in 2025. And then we talked about Omosigho, the wild card. I mean, he's a gifted athlete. He started his career inside, but last year we saw him slide out to Cheetah. But that was because of injuries, depth chart issues. But he quietly played really well. 40 tackles, 5.5 for loss, and maybe most importantly, he showed the versatility of who he is. He's a linebacker who can cover, he can blitz, he can scrape from the backside. Against Navy in that bowl game, he had 6 stops and he looked comfortable in space, and that's what you need at Cheetah, but it's also what you need on the outside of your linebacking group. Now, he's only entering his 3rd year, so he's still developing a little bit. But if you're looking for a breakout candidate in this linebacker group, Sammy may be your guy. He's got the athleticism, he's got the experience now, and I really believe he could be the X factor that determines how good this unit is. I mean, are they going to be okay? Are they going to be average? Are they going to be great? Now, when we're talking about that Cheetah position, I want to come back around to Kendall Daniels. Oklahoma goes into Porter, and they pull him out from Oklahoma State. And that's a huge get for Oklahoma in many ways, because they've got a 3-year starter who's got size, he's got versatility, and he fits this Cheetah role perfectly. And I believe he's locked down that spot. Now what that allows Brent Venables to do is move pieces around, right? So maybe Omosigho can rotate inside. Maybe you mix and match different packages. The point is this: Daniels gives you options in that second wave of your defense. And again, in the SEC, in this league, you need options. And you can't forget about Kendall Dolby. Man, if you remember last season, before his ankle injury, this dude was balling. I think you can make an argument that he was Oklahoma's best defender through the month of September. And if he's healthy, he's a starter caliber guy. But that's the big question, is health. And if he comes back to full strength, he's a guy that could, again, be a moving part. He can be a linebacker. He can be a defensive back. I mean, he can play cheetah. He can play corner. And that suddenly that margin of error, that razor thin margin we talked about, it gets a little bit wider. But if he's not healthy, maybe it gets a little bit thinner. And so then you've got the names, kind of the depth and the unknown guys. Yeah, they're there, but they're not proven in terms of production. Owen Heineke, he's been making some noise in practice. Marcus James is a true freshman who looks like he could be the future for Oklahoma. But he's also not a guy that you want to lean on in his first year. Those are the really 2 big names that you hear coming out of fall camp. So that means depth is a concern. And in the SEC, it's not it's not like you won't need depth, right? It's when. I mean, it's not if, it's when it's going to happen. And Oklahoma enters the season an injury or two away from serious question marks at linebacker. That's why I think you're going to see a lot of bodies on the field in this season opener. So for Oklahoma and the linebacking core, here's what it boils down to in 2025. Can Oklahoma replace Danny Stutsman, not just his production, but also his leadership? Can Kip Lewis step up as the voice of this defense? Can Kobie McKinzie be a consistent run stopper? Can Omosigho take the next leap? And what about Daniels and Dolby? Can they give Brent Venables some flexibility? That's the type of, that's when he thrives. And if the answers to all these are yes, if health holds up, then like I said earlier, this linebacker core can absolutely be not just SEC caliber, they can be high-level SEC caliber. Now, it won't be the deepest group in the league, but it doesn't have to be. It just has to be steady. It just has to be productive, and it has to complement, like I said earlier, a defensive line that looks elite, absolutely loaded. There are no depth questions along the defensive line. But man, in the back of our minds, we're always going to be thinking, what if the wrong domino falls? What if injuries hit or consistency doesn't show up? Then Venables goes from having options to scrambling, and that affects rotations. It even affects schematics. So to me, the 2025 linebackers are a microcosm of this entire team. That's why I said that in the first segment. They're talented enough to beat anybody, but they're thin enough that one bad break can derail everything. And maybe that's the best way to think about this group. They don't need to be a Stutsman-type group. They don't need to be his team anymore. They don't need to be legendary. They just need to be reliable. They just need to survive and advance, if you will. Because if they do that, then this defense with the safeties and the front seven, it has a chance to be a championship good. I'm not just throwing that out there. So that's my thought on Oklahoma's linebackers. That's my thought on Oklahoma's defense. Again, I just want to say thanks for hanging out with us. It's a group that has a chip on their shoulder, definitely. And I like that mentality going into the season. We'll be back. We're going to start looking at offensive side of the ball. We're going to start looking at Illinois State. Really, the big game for Oklahoma comes up a week from Saturday with Michigan. But, we got the season opener, and you can't help but be excited and absolutely ready for that. So, thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you check us out online, heartland-sports.com. We got a lot going on there as well. Have a great week, everybody.
I'm gonna be the man.